Welcome to Inside Football, a KLCoaching podcast. This show features conversations with coaches and players on development in the game, exploring how players actually improve, how coaches think, and the real experiences from inside football. Today I'm joined by Ella Brennan, an England women's national futsal team player, a sports scholar at Derby University, and a football player for Stourbridge FC. Ella, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
No worries.
We'll just start with a little bit of your story and your background. Can you try and take us back to where football first started for yourself?
So football started for Allington United, a boys' team when I was 7. I think I had 2 seasons there before joining a girls' team and playing for Derby. Back then it was it was called the Centre of Excellence, which like got changed to the Regional Talent Club. Um, and then I also played for Derby's Academy, Derby Ladies. And then at 16 there was no longer a Derby like pathway. So I went to play in Tier 4 for a women's team. From that, I joined Stoke under 21s, and then now I'm playing women's football again for Stourbridge FC.
So you mentioned there that you started in a boys' team. How did you find that being amongst boys, and do you think that helped, or how do you think that affected your development going forwards?
I think it definitely helped. I think it toughened me up playing against boys who didn't care that I was a girl, which I want it that way. I wouldn't want it any different. And I think when I joined Derby, one of my first seasons, we actually had a girls' team register in a boys' league. So again, we was playing against boys, and I think that's an important part of development because it toughens you up because bodies are different, boys and girls. So it's important to play against boys who, yeah, may be faster, but I tell you what, when we was in the girls' team playing in the boys' league, we won the league. So it just shows that girls can obviously compete against boys, especially at that age as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that's brilliant. So on the development side, obviously playing against boys who maybe develop a little bit quicker physically, and like you say, getting you ready for going into women's football. Um, so what did football look like for you when you were growing up? So sort of 7, 8, maybe in that boys' league. What did it sort of look like for yourself?
I think it was always hard because I think when I joined Allington, I wasn't expecting to actually play that much. I think I was always used to going watching my brother play on the sidelines and just kicking the odd ball around. I was never really that interested. When as a younger girl, I was trampolining, I was doing dance. It wasn't really something that interested me until I went to my first session, and then I think Ash, our manager, he handed me a kit on the first training session. He was like, "Can you play on Sunday?" And ever since that, I loved it. I think the boys that I had in my team, they were such a good group of lads, and I think we was quite successful. And it was, I look back at it, and if I probably didn't join a boys team at that time, then I probably would either not be playing now or wouldn't be to the level I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the team that you played for Allington was one of the top teams in Derby. So to be amongst that group of lads was obviously a stepping point, and like you say, it probably grew that love for football fonder, starting from a young age. Um,
Yeah.
so moving on to the futsal side of things, then how did that first come into your journey? When did it come into your journey, and how did that happen?
Well, I think I was about 11, 12 when I was at Derby's. I think it was called the Regional Talent Club at that time. Um, and they just set up a Friday league where we'd play against boys again. It was called futsal, but the rules were slightly different just because we was only 11, 12, and it was just basically five-a-side indoors. And there was only a few of us in the RTC that went. There was like 5 or 6 of us that went down. I think we ended up winning the league or doing really well against the boys. But then it kind of all of a sudden came to a stop. I think we went up an age group and then it wasn't able to play anymore. And then when I was 16 and wasn't at Derby anymore, I saw the coach that set it up and she was like, Derby Futsal have just started back up. Why don't you go down and have a look? So I did. It was like an open day trial thing. I got in and then that was about 4 years ago and I've just been playing ever since.
So was that the point that you'd say that futsal became something serious for you
Yeah,
at that age?
I think after my second season for Derby, Derby futsal, sorry, I got selected for under 19s England, and I was like, this is like where I want to be. I want to play for my country, so I carried it on. I'm not lo longer at Derby futsal anymore. I play for Bolton, um, which is a little bit of a trek, but they're one of the best teams in the country. So I need to play with I play with a lot of them at England, so it helps with my development with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, what is it that you enjoyed most at that stage? So possibly around the age of 17 or 18 when you get in that call up for England. What was the most enjoyable part about it?
I think it's because it was the first ever England squad to ever happen. I think it was nice to be involved in that, and I think all of the girls who were getting selected weren't really expecting it, especially for the under 19s because there was a large range of players across the country. But I got the under 19s in the December, I think it was, and then by the January I'd already been selected for the seniors. So it was a quick process of being pushed up to the senior squad, and it's something that still I'm amazed at now. But yeah, being selected at that age and like 17, 18 going onwards now to, well, I'm 20 now, to still hopefully representing my country. We've got England selection again next month, so eyes are on Lithuania in March.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a massive achievement and starting from a young age, obviously at 11, 12, doing the futsal for the regional talent club. Like you said, is a massive stepping stone from going from that at 11. Um, Realistically, starting futsal at maybe a later age, rather than starting from 7, 8 years old, to then being picked for England. Obviously, development must have come quite quick, and yeah, that's really brilliant. Um, so how would you explain futsal to someone who's never watched it?
I would say a lot of people hate it when they say it's just indoor football because it's not. It's a lot more than that. We use a heavier ball. It's a little bit smaller than like a size five, in between a size four and five, but it's heavier. The goals are smaller. It's on obviously in a court inside. If the ball goes out of play, you have 4 seconds to kick it in. It's a faster version of football because it's there's no time wasted involved because it's stop clock every time the ball goes out. That was stop clocks and it's 20-minute halves. Um, and like you can only use the keeper once and until like the opposition have touched the ball or you've gone over halfway. So it's not like keeping the ball. It's got to keep moving repetitively, and I think that's what's helped my football because it's such fast pace that, and obviously on a small court that you kind of have to then adapt when you go onto a bigger pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. So you look in the modern game of football. It's very possession, tiki taka. Let's play the ball, keep the ball, keep possession. But as you say, with futsal, it's very fast paced. Getting the ball from one end to the other as quick as possible. Like you say, only being able to use the keeper once. So what do you think that futsal maybe gives you in terms of your development and your skill level that football maybe didn't give you?
I think obviously the fact that the sizes of pitch is different. I think when I go to play futsal, everything's on a small court. You have to have close ball control. You have to get out of a situation quick. Like you have to quickly move the ball. Whereas in football, yes, obviously there's more players and stuff, but you probably have more time on the ball than you think. When in futsal, you can have one player on your back, and then because obviously players travel over a small distance, you can easily have two players on you, and that's when you need to keep the ball moving. And I think taking that into my football, especially as a centre mid, where it's a bit compact in the central area, I think it definitely helps because I can move the ball quick and I can also, it gives you vision as well, futsal. You don't think it does, but you've got to know that because you've only got three other teammates as well as the keeper. Um, Compare that to 11 aside, you can see more areas in the pitch to pass the ball and stuff.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of sort of zoomed in versions of the technical skills that you maybe develop in football, but maybe to a higher degree and like you say, a faster pace. Um, so what more zooming in onto the technical side of things, what do you think what technical or decision making skills do you think have improved in yourself the most?
I think definitely my feet. I think one of my greatest assets as a footballer and a futsal is I can take on a player 1v1. And I think in futsal as well, because I'm a pivot, which is known as the striker, shot power as well. And in a way, shot accuracy. I know it's obviously a smaller goal in futsal, but the keepers obviously seem to take up more of the goal. So you got it's harder to hit the like score. And then taking that into football, you think, oh, do you just always hit the keeper? But I think when you can then compare it to football, you can get your shot power in, you can deceive like keepers by how much power you can get in the shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think getting used to those smaller goals can, like you say, improve that accuracy and mix it in with the shot power. Um, and yeah, you can take that into your football of, well, if you can slot it nicely into the top corner in a futsal goal, then it makes it easier in a bigger goal. Um, so a little bit more on the coaching side of things. How how does futsal as a sport affect your scanning and your awareness with how fast paced it is and the small pitch and probably quite being a busy area in certain places on the pitch. So how does that affect your awareness and your scanning and taking that into football? Um, does it feel different or does it help in any way?
Yeah, I think it is different. I think in football, when you check your shoulder, a player can be 3, 4 yards behind you when you've got the ball. Whereas in futsal, most of the time when you receive the ball, you've already got someone on your back because it's pretty much man for man in futsal because it's 4v4. Wingers stick to wingers, defenders stick to their attacker and whatnot. So I think it's not necessarily checking your shoulder as much, but it's shielding the ball, holding off the defender, taking a sole touch because that's important in futsal because it means that your like touches aren't bouncing off you and stuff. And that's the first thing you get taught as a futsal player. I know it's changed obviously in football, but sole touches is really important in futsal because it secures the ball. Especially on a short like pitch, you can't have the ball bouncing off you, otherwise, you're just going to lose possession. But yeah, awareness of the players around me is different in both. Like in football, you got to check your shoulder, you got to drop into space, whereas futsal, you pretty much stick to one side of the court and make sure that the defender can't get in front of you before you've got the ball. Um, but yeah, it definitely helps in both because it's like different aspects of it going from futsal to football.
Yeah, absolutely, and I see what you mean about the different aspects because um, I know personally when I'm coaching, we try and stay away from receiving the ball with the
Yeah.
sole of your foot because if that ball goes underneath your foot, then you've lost possession. Um, but like you say, with futsal, it brings a whole new technical side to the game of being able to control that ball with the sole of your foot, for example.
Yeah.
Um, we'll move on to a little bit about your development and the pathway that you've taken. Um, looking back more so when you were a bit younger, what moments would you say had the biggest impact on your development as a footballer and a futsal player combined?
Um, when I obviously left Allington, I had 3 seasons at Derby RTC, and then I got released. And having that setback, I think, has probably made me who I am today. And I know that was obviously, I don't even know, like 7 years ago or however long it was. But because it happened at such a young age, you didn't want to stop playing football just because you had one setback. So I think that obviously helped me as a player because it shows that, me and my family say everything happens for a reason, and it is true because if I didn't have that setback, I wouldn't have met the friends I have today. Probably still wouldn't be where I am today because it's just what happens naturally. But yeah, I met some amazing coaches along the way when I had my setback. So obviously you get new connections and everything did happen for a reason because I did end up going back to Derby because they wanted me back again. And yeah, it just shows that one coach might not want you, which is fine because it's just their opinion, whereas another coach might bring the best out of you. And I think having that at a young age really helped me, especially now going into like senior women's football. Yeah, definitely a lot of help.
Yeah, that's a really strong point. What you say there, and I think maybe it doesn't happen enough where you possibly see an 11, 12-year old, especially in an academy setting, get released and maybe they can sort of have a feeling in their mind of, well that's it now. I'm not a footballer anymore.
Yeah,
And to be able for yourself to have that setback and bounce back from it and go back to Derby and prove them wrong in a way,
yeah,
it must feel a lot better and more of an achievement. The fact that you've sort of proved them wrong and laughed in their face, have gone, well, you've released me. Why have you done that? Because I'm back now.
Yeah.
Um, what helped you push through those moments? You obviously mentioned about how yourself and your family have the feeling and the saying that everything happens for a reason, which I completely agree with. I love that saying. But was there anything else that you'd say that helped you push through the moments?
Um, I think obviously when you get released from a team, especially after being there for 3 seasons, I'd like met friends that I thought I was gonna carry on with my football journey with. So then obviously having to then find a new club, um, and making new friends again, it is tough. You've got to settle back in. It's not just playing the football, it's settling back into your teammates, knowing how they play. But I was lucky that because I got released from the RTC, I managed to go to Derby Ladies, which is like it's all confusing, but it's obviously a different pathway. Um, but the girls I had in my team, they were honestly, I'm still friends with them now, and I think the manager I had at the time as well really brought me on as a player. I'd say I probably developed more in 2 seasons than 3 seasons at the RTC. But yeah, the friends I made along the way really helped. And again, my mum and dad are they're full back me, and I think their belief in me helped me like get back, like overcome the setback. But yeah, no, I'd say definitely the managers, parents, and the friends I made along the way.
So you mentioned there that you feel as though you developed more in the 2 seasons than the three. Would you put that down to the coach that you had, or the players that were surrounding you? What would you say that made that development happen faster or quicker?
I think it's hard because I think when I was at the RTC, obviously it's like the academy, it's what's under the England FA, it's what you have a lot of England scouts coming to watch you, and a lot of my teammates were in the pathway for it. Um, and even though it wasn't the focus on winning, it was the focus on performance, which I think at that age it is important because you don't want kids to be obsessed with winning at such a young age. I think it's important for their development more than anything. Um, but because I was England scouts, and sometimes it was hard for us to gel as a team because it was such a under an academy mindset. I think when I then stepped back to Derby Ladies, I think it was a bit more relaxed. People could enjoy their football a bit more. I think we was, even though I just said that thing about winning, I think we were still successful. Like we was winning tournaments and stuff. And I think that just helped us gelled as a team, like moving through the age groups. And then the managers as well. Like I said, like, I've had amazing managers every team I've been through, and even the RTC managers were really good. Um, but yeah, definitely the teammates and definitely the coaches that help along the way.
So you mentioned a couple of things in there which I think are really important. Um, so I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. You mentioned about how uh, England scouts were often down watching you, um, and that individuals started to focus on their own performance, maybe rather than gelling as a team. Um, that to me possibly sounds like they were trying to maybe have more of the ball to showcase what they've got to these scouts. Um, do you think that was the case? Do you think maybe people started to feel the pressure and the need to impress these big England scouts, and so they can try and get somewhere
Yeah,
in the future? How do you think that the England
I think
scouts being there?
yeah, definitely. I think for me, one of the things I've played by is an advice I'd give to like people watching and stuff is play like you never know who's watching you. People can be standing in a corner, people I don't know, parents on another pitch may have links, and you've got to play every game like an England scout is watching you, even though they might not be, because you literally never know who is. But I think when you get told that an England scout's going to be there, it does affect your mind a bit because it's like, oh God. But 9 times out of 10, when you overthink and you try and overwork yourself, you're not going to have the performance that you want. So it's important to just be like, for me, I'll just play my own game. They didn't really bother me, I was just going to take it as it is. But yeah, some girls probably, and it is easy too because you want to impress the England coaches. That's what you play football for. You want to play for your country and stuff. Um, but yeah, it was hard. And that's probably why at Derby Ladies, when there wasn't the aspect of an England coach coming down to watch, we probably gelled better as a team because everyone wanted to play for each other, and that's probably why I was more successful as well.
Yeah, going on to that, I think it's really important, especially in football, to be able to gel as a team and play as a team. Is ultimately it's a team game. Um, you mentioned about the academy mindset, and that in that squad, it was a bit harder to gel as a team. What Just elaborate on what is the academy mindset for those that may not know.
Um, I'd say a lot of it isn't probably entitlement. I think a lot of people think because they're at an academy, they're better than everyone else. But realistically, it's just if you've been seen or if you've been lucky in a trial, you might have had a really bad trial, not performed to your best, and therefore they've not seen the best of you. But, week in, week out, you can perform at that level. Um, but yeah, it's definitely entitlement, and some players, not necessarily in my team, because I don't think it was like that, and you don't see it necessarily as much in women's football. Um, but yeah, people definitely thinking they're better than everyone else, when really most people just haven't had the chance to show what they're made of and stuff, which I think is hard because, you could be a really good player but just not perform at trials, which is fair because they are like nerve-wracking situations and stuff. And I probably never was that great in trials. They used to worry me. I used to get nervous for them because it was like the word trial is it's scary because you've only got one shot to show. But if you just keep performing week in, week out, again, like I said, you never know who's watching you. And if you keep performing at that level, eventually, you might get picked up, or being consistent, you might then perform well at a trial and, have that academy. Um, what's it called? Like go to an academy.
Yeah, sort of academy opportunity. I think what you said there is really important, and especially in grassroots football, when there's a scout that comes down, you see it a lot. You see egos come out, and like you said, I think the most important thing is to just play, just play your game, and you don't need that added pressure of scouts.
Yeah.
Um, and and yeah, I think like just to repeat myself, what you said about how um, sort of play like an England scout's there every week, or play like you
Yeah.
don't know who's watching is really important, and can probably teach you to take that pressure off yourself when maybe an England scout does actually come down, and help you handle that
Yeah.
a little bit better. Um, so linking on to that then, uh, surrounding obviously you said that you didn't get affected by it too much, but maybe there was some occasions that maybe the pressure did get to you, or the expectations of England, Derby, these sort of big names maybe got to you. How did you feel like you handled the pressure, or those expectations?
I mean, I think at times it's hard to play when there's pressure on you, whether that be from external things like I was lucky my family never put pressure on me. They just said go out and play like it's your last game. But the most pressure you can feel is the pressure you put on yourself. And I think at times when it was a big game or playing against, like we used to play Forest a lot, and I think being a Derby fan from a young age, even though it was an under 13s game against Forest, you still wanted to win, you still wanted to beat them because you wanted the bragging rights. But the bigger games like cup games and stuff, I think I put the pressure on myself. And I think it is hard to play when you put that pressure on yourself because you're more observant of everything you do. Like a bad touch, you're thinking, oh, I'm having a bad game. Bad pass, or take me off. And I think you just need to forget about anything bad you do in a game when you've got that pressure on yourself. I think when people play with a smile on their face, they play their best football. And I also live by that. Like, once you're enjoying yourself, you've not got any pressure on you. Just be relaxed on the ball. And I think that's when you can get the best performance out of yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. As soon as the smile comes on your face, that's as a coach where I most enjoy it. If I can see a team, or an individual smiling, then that's my job as a coach complete. They're enjoying themselves, and like you say, is from a player point of view, if they're smiling, they're going to play the game. They're enjoying it. Um, which then links onto the bit of you mentioned about if you maybe have a bad touch or a bad pass, and you get inside your own head. On the flip side of that, if we have a good touch and we play an amazing pass, the chances are your confidence are lifted.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you as a player of playing with that high confidence?
I think, especially in game situations, when you've done a few good things in a row, your confidence just lifts you, and I think it comes also from like external, like your coach is saying, well done. You can hear like not the fans, but the parents shouting on the sideline, going, "Oh, well done." And I think that just lifts your mood. And if you tried a pass and it worked off, then you're more likely to try that pass again and it work again. And I think if the opposite side of that, if you try a pass and it doesn't work, you're not going to do it again. So I think it just shows that in games you can feel low, you can feel like, oh, I'm not playing well, I've done bad passes, I've done bad touches. Whereas it can also be the opposite, like you've scored a goal, you've helped your team, you've assisted, and then obviously that will just grow your performance. But I think it's important if you do feel like you're not having a good game, that it's only a small part in the game that you might have done something bad. And it's not necessarily bad, it's just something you can work on to do like further on in the game and, rectify it and help the team as much as you can.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's a really important thing that especially we see a lot in younger grassroots teams where they maybe make that mistake, um, and that's it. The head's gone, and like you said, it's not only a small part of that game; it's also a small part of their whole playing career. I mean, at the
Yeah.
age of 8 years old, not being able to do a 20-yard ping across the pitch and getting inside your own head, well, you're not going to remember that A at the end of the game and B in years to come where you've mastered that. Um, what I liked as well that you said about if you're in your own head and you're low in that game, it can feel quite lonely and where maybe because you're in that mindset and you're stuck in that mindset, if you try and play a pass through the lines or try and break the lines, um, and it doesn't go quite well, then the chances are you're not going to do it again. Whereas I think, especially from a coaching point of view, I think those that take the biggest risks become the best players. I think, like you said, if you're in that mindset, you're not going to take those risks, and you might end up just choosing the easy ball every time and playing it safe and not being able to progress up the pitch because you're in that mindset of being too afraid to to take the risks and get the ball forward. You'd rather play it safe. So no, I think that's really important. Um, so obviously a lot goes on in your life, balancing futsal, football, university because you're a scholar at Derby University. How do you balance all of that? It's a lot. It's a lot to do.
I definitely think I don't balance it as well as I should do. I think this week especially, it's quite full on. I'm training pretty much every day. Um, and I would give the advice of it's important to recover, even though I don't listen to it myself. Um, but yeah, it is full on, and I think it is hard. To be fair, especially my futsal team train on the same night as my football team. So that's quite hard because, I want to train as much as I can for each team I play for and give my full 100% commitment. But it's hard when the two teams train on the same night. But luckily, the managers that I have are both understanding that, I'll do it week in, week out basis of going to each team. But yeah, this week especially, you've caught me on a bad week because it's pretty full on with everything that I've got going on. We've got 5 futsal games on Saturday, a game on Wednesday, PT, S&C, and training today. So it is full on, but it's what I want to do, and it's what's going to help me develop even more. I'm still only 20, so I'm still a young player who's wanting to push themselves as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned you train on the same night then, which a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do. So I think that's really important. Is that for a futsal team and a football team?
Yeah, so Stourbridge I train Tuesdays and Thursdays, and futsal they just train Thursdays. Um, so because there's not as many futsal teams as in a football league, we try to work it where I go to training like the day before, not the day, the week before a big game. Like we've just had a big game. Unfortunately, we lost 3-2 at the weekend. But yeah, I'll be training next week with them, and Stourbridge and Bolton are they're very understanding that I'm gonna have to miss some training sessions each time. But I'm lucky that they understand. So
Do you feel as though when you go from a football environment to a football environment, especially on the same day, maybe not having that time to reflect in between, does it maybe impact your game of possibly taking those um, futsal aspects into your football game that maybe don't work or don't complement each other? For example, receiving the ball with the sole of your foot. Do you think you might get caught doing things like that sometimes? And and maybe it affecting your performance and training?
I think there has been a time in football that I did try and do a soul touch. I think I was lucky enough that it did work, but I remember thinking, Ella, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing a soul touch? You're on a grass pitch. Like, it could go anywhere, it could bobble, it could go underneath you. But I think I was lucky that it worked. I think it's hard because I want to do both, but at times when I've played on a Saturday and then I have to go play football on a Sunday, it is tiring and it is, sometimes it is hard to be motivated. But I think when you love the sport that much, it does motivate you and it does, you want to win, you want to be there for your teammates. But yeah, definitely, I think there has been times I've been caught out doing things that I do in futsal on a football pitch and then vice versa. But I think nothing that stands out that I've done badly. So hopefully it will stop and we'll just keep it futsal and football separate.
Yeah, I think you've got a real good balance of your football, futsal, and university general life outside of things, which is really important. Obviously, you mentioned that you don't really have the time to recover, which is obviously a vital point of football, futsal, and sport in general. Um, do you feel as though that impacts you? Because, like you said yourself, with the fact that maybe you're not recovering how you should, so you obviously understand the importance of recovery. Um, yeah, how would you say that maybe things need to change, or can they change? Because you've only got 7 days in a week, and to fit your busy schedule in must be quite difficult. So how do you think that no recovery time or minimal recovery time does infect your infect does affect your performance in training match day?
I think it's hard. I think because I've been playing futsal on Saturday and football on Sunday for 4 years now, I think your body does kind of get used to it. The big weekends and obviously a lot of training in the week. And I think because it's happened for 4 years now, my body has like got used to it. I think obviously it's still hard waking up on a Sunday with a little bit of achy legs, but then again, it's just as important to warm up before a game. And obviously try and get rid of as much achiness as possible. But I think it just makes you like this week I'm lucky enough that Sunday I don't have a game unless obviously a friendly gets put on. So I think it just makes sure that Sunday I'm looking forward to because it'll be a full day off, nothing like no training, and I think that's what's worth it because obviously the days off don't come often enough. So once you do have that day off, it's you can really make the most of it and have a full reset and then get ready for another full week of training and games again.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's been really good to hear about your development and your pathway as a footballer, a futsal player. Um, we'll move on to a topic that is becoming more known and more seen in the football game, which is a little bit on the women's game. Now it's becoming a massive thing. Um, Finally, after such a long time.
Yeah.
Um, how do you see opportunities for young girls in football and futsal right now compared to maybe when you were starting out?
Um, I think I look back to when I was playing for Allington, I was one of the only girls in the team. I think in the second year we did have another girl, and you'd look around and play other teams, and it'd be a full team of boys and very rarely have a girl. And then very rarely you'd see a full set of girls. And you go down to like your playing fields now where the fixtures are, and there's girls' teams, there's like two, three girls in a boys' team, and I think that's really nice to see because it just shows how far it's come. But I think in the futsal mindset of it all, it's definitely improving, especially even since I know I've obviously been playing for 3, 4 years, but when I first got the England call up, there was only an under 19s and a senior, and now I think there's an under 16s, under 17s, 19s, and then senior. So it is growing, there's more opportunities for girls to play for their country. There's a lot more youth tournaments in futsal as well, because obviously that's still an up and coming sport, especially in England. You compare it to your Spain's, Portugal's, and Brazil's, who are like more commonly known for their futsal, there's very big different compared to England, but it is on the rise, and I think like obviously representing my country, I've been asked to go down to like local youth teams and hand out medals and tournaments and stuff, and I think that's nice to see because I didn't have a futsal. I know obviously I said I played on that Friday night, but it was never it was never serious. And these kids obviously get to play futsal at a young age, and I think that's really important for their development as well as for their enjoyment and growing of the game.
Absolutely, yeah. I think if we take a look at a different sport, in darts, you've kind of got that Luke Littler effect of
Yeah.
such a young lad playing darts, winning world championships and things like that. Obviously, that's quite similar in a football term, with the England women's team being so successful. Uh, do you think there's anything else that maybe is kicking on the women's game and making it such an important and big thing that it should be?
I think definitely football when the women won the Euros. I think, you know, a lot happened since that. And I mean, they're lucky enough that they did it twice. Well, not lucky, they obviously deserved it, but not many countries can say they've won it twice, especially in like a row. But since winning that, they sent a letter to the government. They had women, girls football in PE, and I think that was important because when I grew up in school, I'd have to play with the boys. At lunchtime, I'd have to play with the boys, and don't get me wrong, I loved it because I had a lot of friends that were boys, and it did help. But I think now that obviously more girls are getting into football, it is important that they do have their own, especially as you get older, boys and girls football does become different. But yeah, definitely since the women won the Euros, girls obviously saw that as something they wanted to achieve. So I think a lot more girls got into football. And I do think that is really important because it's not even a fact that you're exercising and, playing a sport, it's the fact you're making friends along the way. And I'd argue that the friends I've made at football are some that, I'll keep for life and things like that. So I do think it's really important for young girls to get into football and, you know, not necessarily needing to play for high teams, just playing at that level that they're comfortable at and playing with their friends at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got that pick between um, and the same as in boys football, where you can pick between the do you want to develop as a football player, or maybe let's look at going to a Division 1, 2 team, grassroots level, academy level, going to the trials, and things like that, and then like you say, it's just as equally as important that you've got that social aspect of it as well of maybe I want to do a little bit of exercise, so let's get into football. Let's go to a Division 5 team, make loads of friends, and have fun. So yeah, I think it's really important that you can have those two sides of football, and you see you see it every day in girls football now, which is a really good opportunity that they've got and a long time coming. Um, so yeah, obviously there's a lot of good things that are happening in the women's game now. What in your opinion do you think still needs to improve?
I think definitely not necessarily WSL because I know they still don't earn as much as the men, but even it's hard now, tier three, which is the one below championship in women's football. There's obviously North and South, and I think some teams are professional, some are semi-pro. And I think that just disrupts the league a bit because you've got teams that are professional, full time, who are able to train off more often with each other. They're on more pay, competing against teams that maybe only still train Tuesdays and Thursday nights and just get paid to play. And I think there's obviously they're in the same league, still trying to compete, but you can't compete with someone who are bringing in players because they can afford them or training every day, you underestimate how much you can train with the team and how much it gels you, and you get the same chemistry. So I think that's hard because it just shows that even though they're in the same league, they're just at different levels of the game, and it's hard to then compete. I know obviously if you've got a good team, you can still compete, but it is different and it is hard. But yeah, definitely the women's side of it, and even the media coverage, has obviously got a lot better. A lot more games are on Sky and TNT and what, but you know it's still not to the point that it could be and should be. But obviously, as I said, ever since the women's Euros, it has got a lot better, and it is frustrating because it shows that they have to do something and have to win something for it to get better. But they have done, and credits to them because now it has grown massively in just the however many years it is, 4 years has it been since they first won it. So it just shows that it's obviously got more heights to get to, and I think that it will get there. But for now, it's still obviously growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said there, it's a frustrating one that it took something to happen to provoke a reaction out of the FA, out of Sky, out of all these big companies. And yeah, it's a very frustrating thing that like I say, took that winning of the Euros to happen for anything to get done. Um, on that then, now football and futsal in the women's game is becoming a bigger and better thing. Um, what bit of advice would you say to a young girl starting out now, or maybe if you look back onto it, what would you say to yourself at 7, 8 years old?
I would definitely say just trust the process. I think that's an important thing. I think obviously try and push yourselves as much as possible because, it's easy to just sit back and be like, yeah, I'm enjoying the level I'm at. But, if you do play to at the highest level you can, obviously I've been in academies and it is good. You have elite coaching, you get access to things that grassroots teams probably don't get access to. Um, but some of like the advice I'd give is obviously what we spoke about, just like play like it's your last game, play like you don't know who's watching because at the end of the day you never do. And if you play like it's your last game, you're gonna put it all out there. You're gonna leave every last bit of you on the pitch, put 100% work rate in. And then I'd just reiterate that everything happens for a reason. I think, especially in girls' football, when it is hard at times because especially I think especially playing with boys at a young age, it was hard because they'd be a little bit stronger than you, but I think that does toughen you up. But trust the setbacks. Like I said, I got released, and it was a tough time emotionally. It was, and then obviously the process of then trying to find a new club, it is hard. But you got to trust that process. And when I went back to Derby and then tried to go back to Derby Ladies, they didn't want me, so I had another setback later on in my career as well. And like I said, no matter what, the setbacks I've had have got me to where I am now. Like I'm getting paid to play football. I'm at a good level and obviously playing for my country for England. So if I had all them setbacks, I probably wouldn't be playing futsal because RTC didn't really like playing for two teams. So it just shows that if I'd had that setback in when I got released from Derby, it opened the doors up for futsal and now, I've scored 2 goals for my country. So yeah, it is good.
Absolutely, yeah, that's some really strong advice. And I think we'll squeeze a little bit more advice out of you just because you're full of it, and it's really good, and you're an inspiration to young girls coming up to play football and futsal. Um, what would you tell him? What would you tell players who maybe want to improve, but possibly feel as though they've maybe hit a straight line and are struggling to improve?
I would say if you can, try and join futsal. I think had definitely seen a change in my performances on the football pitch when I started futsal because they like go two and two together and they can push one, you can, you know, like I said, it helps you, complements you on the pitch when you go from playing on a tight court to then taking it onto a bigger pitch. Um, but I think sometimes it just takes that little bit of extra push. You may think that you're not going to improve, but like everyone can improve at different levels. Like even now they say you don't hit like your peak um like playing what's it called? Like playing style, playing to your best until like 27. So for girls at a young age who think, "Oh, I'm not going to get any better," you definitely are because you've still got so much left of your career. You've still got like so many years left of playing football. But things like you do, like one to one, there was a time in my career that I was really low. Um, didn't think, I was like, oh, do I want to carry on playing? I felt I just didn't enjoy the sport as much as what I wanted to, and I only went to one-to-one coaching with this guy, and I loved it, and since then, like it's all picked up. I've carried on playing, and I love it just as much as when I was younger. So maybe it just takes a one-to-one like what you do, and I had it with another guy, and just having that one session where it was purely focused on you and your development, it really like brought on your confidence because yes, it's hard to be in a team surrounding when you're with other players and the coach is obviously focused on a whole team, but when you just work with one person, it can bring your confidence on because they've got pure attention, 100% attention on you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that links into one of those setbacks that you've had to deal with, and the way you deal with them are really positive, and you get straight back into it. And like you say, having that bit of one-to-one time can can provoke that and help you overcome that setback. So it's just finding those different ways of getting past the bump in the road, if you will. So a little bit of help for the coaches watching. Um, what advice would you give to a coach working with young players, more girls in particularly? So a coach maybe working with a girls team, or for myself doing one-to-ones with female players. What bit of advice would you give to them?
I think it's hard because, you don't want this like stigma about boys being different to girls, but you kind of have to notice that because they are like girls are going to want to demand more different things to what boys are going to want to demand. Um, so I think being a coach, like coaching a girls' team, it's important to just understand them, especially as they get older, their bodies start to mature and stuff. Coaches need to understand that girls go through different things than boys, and I think it's important that they also, because they don't have the same opportunities as boys, the important thing isn't making sure that they win every week or making sure that they have 9 out of 10 performances, 10 out of 10 performances. It's the fact of just instilling enjoyment. Make sure they enjoy it first, make sure they're having a good time. And then obviously, if they're going to enjoy the game, they're going to want to push, they're going to want to win more games. And I think that's where coaches can get the most understanding from their players. Because if they're playing whilst they're unhappy, like we said earlier, they're not going to play to their best of their ability. Then they're going to just want to quit. And I think for girls' football, as it's growing, more people playing, more people enjoying it, it's just going to grow the sport even more.
Absolutely, I think what you said was really strong there about how you should first of all treat them as a footballer, uh, not putting a male footballer or a female footballer in front of that, and getting rid of that stigma of ultimately they are a footballer, but you have to bring that side of things of, like you say, when they go through the maturation and getting older, of you have to maybe understand them is a really good word, like you said. um if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
I would tell them to just enjoy it. We spoke about obviously putting pressure on yourselves, and I think now that I look back, there was definitely times in my career that I put too much pressure on myself to perform when really you just enjoy it. You know, enjoy the fact you've been in an academy, enjoy the fact you've made friends along the way, enjoy the fact you've played with boys, and everything. And I think looking back now, the career I have had, if I was to stop playing tomorrow, I think I'd still be proud of what I've achieved in it. I've played with teammates that I'm still friends with. I've won competitions, I've won leagues, and obviously I'm not going to stop playing because I'm going to carry on playing until I can't no longer. But yeah, I would just tell my younger self to enjoy it, trust the process, and everything happens for a reason. Literally, I'll keep saying that because it really does. But yeah,
Absolutely, it's some really really good advice there, and I'm sure a lot of people will take good things out of everything you've said with the advice. um so I like to do a quick fire round. Now, I will warn you, it's very very rarely quick fire. So if you want to expand, feel free to expand. But I've just got three quick fire questions that try and keep it short. But like I say, they're questions that provoke an answer. So yeah. So the first one, what does development mean to you now?
I would say probably getting to that next step in your career. I think now playing in tier four, I want to, especially as I'm not getting older, but I'm not teenage years anymore. I think it means, I want to be playing tier three. Realistically, I want to be playing to the highest I can. But obviously, playing futsal and football at the same time, it's hard for you to get to that high level. But development means just getting better each game, playing better than performance before, or learning new things that you try new things in the game that you probably haven't tried before.
Yeah, I think it differs from yourself answering to maybe if I asked a 9 year old, for example. I think development for yourself is getting to that next stage, um, winning titles, winning leagues, and things like that. But at such a young age of 8, 9, um, the focus just isn't on that at all. And development looks like learning how to kick a ball harder, or to receive the ball with an open body. but obviously you're at the stage and age and skill level now that all of that's completed.
Yeah.
Um, so it's probably difficult for yourself to learn things in football in a way. Maybe more, maybe learning more things of the tactical side, but as far as the technical and physical side, maybe not learning as much. So, like you said, they're putting it into practice, into game of taking more risks and developing in that way. Um, what's something you understand about the game? Now, we'll answer this individually. So we'll answer one about football and football because I think it would be nice to get a perspective from both. Um, so yeah, what's something that you understand about the game now that you didn't before?
I think that's quite a tough question actually, but I think futsal, I would say it's a lot more tactically than you let on. You think, you just pass the ball, score. It's not like that, you have to move off the ball a lot more than you do in football. You have to sometimes your movement can cause a goal. You take a player out of the way, it opens a pathway up for another player to shoot. And I think because it's so tactically minded, then taking that to football, um, it does help you and stuff. But football, one thing that I would just say, if you compare myself to 8-year-old me, I didn't know the offside rule, now I do. Um, that's a tough question, actually. Um, I would say, just again reiterating the tactics side, I think when you're younger, you know, there isn't, it's hard to compare yourself to when you were younger because you look back at it, and even when you watch younger kids play football, it's on obviously on a smaller pitch and all the kids just run towards the ball and it is good to see. And I think now, I think it's important to understand that you don't need to get drawn into going towards the ball. Sometimes you creating that space on another side of the pitch or even dropping back to receive a ball is just as important as trying going back to win it or thinking you need to go closer to a teammate so that they can pass it to you. As you grow older, obviously, players can pass over a larger distance, and then therefore it's important to stay away from the ball. So I say just the difference compared to like watching younger football when kids are everywhere, kids are going towards the ball, to then maybe like 11, 12, and especially playing in academy, it has helped because they reiterate that into you. You don't need to get drawn towards the ball. You need to just stand your ground. The ball will come to you. Obviously, don't just get caught ball watching, but you know, you don't need to go and follow everyone. As long as one person's dealing with the 1v1, more than it should be okay.
Oh, absolutely, and as a coach hearing that's exactly what coaches want to hear, and that understanding of um, you don't have to win the ball to win the ball.
Yeah.
Something such as just standing in front of a player can put them off enough to win the ball.
Yeah.
And like you said again, your movement off the ball and it's not focused on enough in grassroots.
Mm.
And I think that's possibly down to the fact that there's so many parent volunteer coaches that maybe don't understand that side of the game. They understand the, especially on the FA level one. There's not much learning that goes involved in the coaching. So you learn how to do a passing drill, how to do a receiving drill, how to do a shooting drill. But you don't look at the things maybe off the ball or out of possession. So if the ball's on the left wing and you're a right winger, or thinking about how can you impact the game of can I make an inside run to draw a player out? Can I drop off to maybe receive the ball or things like that that maybe you don't think about? But to hear that from a player talking to a coach is exactly what coaches want to hear and understanding the deeper side of football. Um, final question then. What keeps you motivated to keep improving? Because you've achieved a lot at such a young age already. Um, and some people could maybe look at your career and go, oh, completed futsal, completed football. I've played for England. I've done it. Um, but what keeps you motivated to keep improving and get to that next level?
I think definitely my enjoyment. I wake up every day and I'm thinking when am my next training? I do really enjoy it. I enjoy the social aspect of it. I enjoy pushing myself. I think definitely my family around me, they always message me after a game saying, how have you got on? They try to make to as many games as possible. Uh, and I think in futsal it's different, I still want to keep playing, I still enjoy it. But obviously having that England aspect of it, like I said, it's England selection next month. and then the we've got Euro qualifiers in Lithuania in March. So I think, I want to keep pushing myself. I want to obviously go to Lithuania. So now it's just about getting physically fit, mentally fit, ready for Lithuania, and hopefully I'm lucky enough to get the call up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, no, it's been really good. You've said a lot of things, highlighting your advice. I think your advice has been a massive takeaway from this podcast. And yeah, just such an interesting player career that by the sounds of it won't stop now, and you'll keep going higher and succeed, and hopefully do the same thing you did in Gibraltar, and go to Lithuania and succeed over there. But no, I really appreciate your time. And thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. And yeah, we wish you all success in getting selected for that Lithuania team, and anything that the future may hold in football and futsal. So yeah, thank you very much, Ella.
Thank you very much.